I'm still dealing with gluttony as we speak. I'm probably going to go eat some pound cake as soon as this is over.
Right there with you.
But speaking of pound cake, let's talk about somebody else that just took a pounding. Oklahoma Sooners.
Sorry, can't hear that without laughing.
I'm sorry, I can't either.
We're going to be okay. Don't worry.
It's going to be okay. I promise you. It's going to be okay. And we're going to talk you through it. So let's open up with what's going on in the State of the Union for the Oklahoma organization, Sooner football organization. So, of course, we all heard, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, Lincoln Riley has decided to depart University of Oklahoma, and he's headed to University of Southern California on a new contract. I'm going to talk about the parameters of that a little later that we've seen rumored, but I'm hearing big numbers, and it's one of those, I know why you did it. So the question we're asking is, why would Lincoln Riley do this? Like, why would he leave? Why would he go when Oklahoma has been so great and dominant and competing in conference in the college football playoff? He went 3 years in a row, took 3 big L's. But why would you leave this situation? I know why. There's one thing that is universal around college football. It's toxic fan bases. If you're a top 10 organization, your fan base is toxic. I don't care what you try to tell me. None of you can argue this with, period. You're all toxic, period. That's what it is, from the little kid to the top. I'm actually writing something right now. I'm going to post on my Medium tonight to explain in detail. But they're all toxic. Now, in order to handle such toxicity, Jimmy, the best way to get through it and survive it is you got to win championships. You have to have the opportunity to win championships. You got to continue to compete heavily. Alabama, super toxic. If you look at that message board on Saturday, they wanted Nick Saban fired. Bro won 6 championships, but they want him gone now because he struggled in the Iron Bowl. That's toxicity. And so for Lincoln Riley in this situation, leaving Oklahoma made sense, because the one thing you can't do in Oklahoma that you can do at USC is throw a rock and hit 10 5-stars in one throw. Period. So I get the move. It makes sense. And I'll go more in detail on that afterwards. Jimmy, what was your first reaction to the fact that Lincoln Riley decided to throw the deuces?
Mine was, it was shock immediately followed by a lack of shock. Shock in the sense that this was smoke screened beautifully. I believe in the sense that what was manufactured to people was that he was potentially going to LSU.
Yes.
And that's all that we heard throughout the weekend.
Tons of smoke around that.
Yeah, even through Bedlam. So then to have to pivot from that to him being at USC, it made sense because of the USC brand. Even though their product on the field really hasn't been good consistently since Pete Carroll,
right,
like it or not, that is still a top 7 brand. And part of what we talked about with him potentially going to LSU is that it was a move backwards. It wasn't at least a lateral move or a vertical move, which ideally is what you want. So USC brand-wise, even though because of their product on the field and some things in the program have sort of diminished the luster of what that brand was like when Pete Carroll was winning championships, is still, I think, a brand equal to OU. Some would say exceeding OU, even though their product on the field is nowhere near what OU's has been. I mean, going back through the Stoops era as well.
Yes.
So when I took that into consideration, that this is USC, this is, as you mentioned, California, one of the 3 states that's just a breeding ground for 5-star athletes, several of which he had already recruited to Oklahoma for 2022 and 2023, who now don't even have to leave their home state.
Nope.
It did make sense. And whenever somebody leaves, I mean, just like in relationships, if somebody wants to leave and somebody doesn't want to be there, you hurt yourself more by not only keeping them there, but being excessively upset about it, because everyone has the right to choose, to make the choices that they feel are right for themselves, their career, their family, which is what he did. So it's like, that's not a problem. Just like Kevin Durant leaving Oklahoma, leaving Oklahoma City Thunder was not the problem. It's more so how you did it.
Yeah.
So there are portions of how Lincoln Riley handled this that makes him look like a liar, that makes him look like a snake, that makes him look like he didn't even have at least a shred of loyalty to the Oklahoma soil and how good they have been to him and for him in his career. And that's a big part of what has Sooner fans so upset, because I think a lot of them, let's say the ones who are reasonable, not toxic, they're not necessarily upset with him leaving, because let's be honest, the product they put on the field this year was good, but something about it just wasn't quite right.
It was off. You could tell.
You could tell something was off. Maybe this had a little bit something to do with it, because if you're planning on leaving or if you don't want to be there, then you're not 100% committed. You're not 100% focused. And perhaps Lincoln Riley wasn't, and that translated to what happened on the field. But overall, I was ultimately not shocked by this. I understand why he's doing it. I just have problems with the way in which he did it.
Well, I mean, I guess that is an argument about the approach, but it sounded like nothing got out until right when he did the meeting with the players. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious to how it was supposed to go down, if you want me to be absolutely honest. Like, what way do you feel like this should have happened? Because to me, that's actually the ideal way, that your name's going to be thrown. Lincoln Riley's name's going to be thrown in every job. His name was thrown in the Cleveland Browns job. His name was thrown in the Dallas Cowboys job. He was thrown into the LSU job, which everyone, of course, laughed like, look, he passed on the Cleveland Browns as well as Dallas Cowboys. How else is Lincoln? Where else should Lincoln Riley? He should have went to the NFL if he's going to go to LSU. I get that. I disagree with it, but I get that. But how else can you have this come out? Like, what other way do you feel like would have been better?
Well, I mean, one could say, and this is sort of a minor reason, football-wise, perhaps, since you know that once you verbally committed to them, USC wasn't going anywhere, because you will have been the best coach that they've had since Pete Carroll. So perhaps you wait until after the bowl game. That's a small reason why. But even if you don't do that, part of what you don't is not so much what he needed to do. It's not doing certain things that he did. Like, for instance, a headline for an article published yesterday, so in a sense, probably minutes or hours before the news dropped, Lincoln Riley shuts down LSU speculation, says he's committed to Oklahoma. Now, what's funny about this article, this is by Kyle Bonagura, an ESPN staff writer, is that in this article, he doesn't exactly say that, but the way in which he talks, it makes you believe that he's committed. He talks about conversations that he and Castiglione and the president have had about the upcoming move to the SEC, and we have these conversations all the time. We'll continue to have them for years. That type of thing didn't need to be said. Sure, you shut down the LSU explanation because he said, I am not going to be the coach at LSU, and he did not tell a lie at all.
He didn't lie. And that, to me, is what matters.
But reaffirming that commitment, how much you love the school, how much you love the city, blah, blah, blah. Same thing Kevin Durant did. And then that exact same day, it is known that you had already committed to this job, probably days or weeks in advance. That's part of handling it poorly. You don't have to do that.
I get that, but he answered the questions that the reporters placed in front of him. It's not like he volunteered this information. He knew that the speculatory questions were coming, and they've been coming. So what else? What else is he supposed to do?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with shutting down LSU, but I'm not fine with continuing to reaffirm your commitment to Oklahoma. He didn't have to say that. You just shut that down, because coaches, you know how they get with coach speak, or when they don't want to answer something, they answer the question in as few words as possible, and then they wait for the next one, or they get up and leave. That's all he had to do.
Yeah,
so
this true.
This was not cool.
I get that part. So with that, there was a few reasons why we've read that this in speculation of why he left. First off was the SEC move. He wasn't on board with that. He was thrown blindsided by that happening. And it's kind of funny that Joel Clack kind of threw a little shade at everybody at OU. Like, I understand that you guys are upset about this piece, and nobody was really upset when OU and Texas blindsided all the Big 12 and gutted basically the conference to leave for the SEC. OU fans were fine with that at that point. He's right in a way, but not an approach to take. I get why Lincoln Riley's leaving. I got 3 points that I feel like makes sense for him to go. And I get why the SEC is not something that he wanted to do. First off, and I'll explain why fear of the competition of the SEC I don't think was it. I think it was a little bit more to the feeling of being disrespected and not even being brought into the conversation. More so, it's more of the principalities behind it. That was the piece. But 3 reasons why it makes sense for him to go there. First off, as you mentioned earlier, He's getting a lot of recruits from California.
Right.
2022 class, 2023 class. He's got the number 2 quarterback, number 1 wide receiver. He's got all these top players coming from where? Southern Cal. Mm-hmm. Now he can keep them there with no problem. And he's a really good recruiter. So we've seen that. The thing is like, for example, right now, the 2 Heisman Trophy front runners right now, quarterbacks, CJ Stroud at Ohio State, Bryce Young at Alabama. Mm-hmm. Where are they from? Southern Cal. Mm-hmm. Guess where Clemson's quarterback, DJ Uiagalelei, is from? California. Mm-hmm. So you've got all these California guys out there, and he was a preseason favorite for the Heisman. He can walk in the door of these players now there and say, hey, guess what? I got 2 Heisman Trophy winners. You see those, you guys, those other Cali boys and with those other schools become Heisman Trophy winners? I can make you that. Mm-hmm. Just stay home. Mm-hmm. You're a monster. Stay home. I got you. He can do that. So that's one big play. He got recruits, 5 stars. He could throw a rock and hit 20 of them. I think in the ESPN top 300, like 100, almost 150 of those kids were from California. Mm-hmm. There you go. That's 1. 2, the biggest problem that USC had in the Pete Carroll era was sanctions. You know, was controversies, was stuff happening. People giving Reggie Bush family money in them and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Name, image, and likeness kicks in, buddy.
Takes care of that.
Takes care of all that. He ain't have to worry about being in the doghouse now. Mm-hmm. He ain't have to worry about at all. He can get his kids all kinds of scholarships. They can do whatever they need to do out there because it's California, it's LA. People got bread, and they can take care of them. Now, this is the key thing. This is the third piece. This is why NIL piece jumps in big and everything else. Money. USC finally has the want to actually win. They had 3 athletic directors since Pete Carroll left. Mm-hmm. Pat Hayden, Lynn Swan, and now the new one, Mike Bone. They're getting stable. And Mike is making the approach of getting to the booster saying, look, we're no longer the only show here. The Dodgers are good. We've got 2 NFL teams, and they're both good. Mm-hmm. The Lakers got LeBron here. The Clippers, they're actually still performing. We've got a soccer team here. They've got all this stuff going on. The Kings was doing pretty good at one point. They're realizing that the only way we can keep money coming into this program is we've got to compete. Lincoln Riley makes them do that. Now he can bring boosters in. Boosters are willing to back a guy with such a big name as Lincoln Riley. They weren't willing to do that for a Clay Helton or even a Lane Kiffin. So that's, to me, the 3 reasons why Lincoln Riley made sense to go there.
I'll give you a 4th reason, and I'm going to pat myself on the back with this one because I haven't heard anybody else say this.
Okay.
You know how we went back to the original rankings this season of the College Football Playoff Committee?
Yeah.
And how they disrespected OU by having them at 8, and then they did it again the next week, even though there were like teams in front of them that had lost, whatever it was.
Yep.
And we said right then and there that the committee does not like OU. They don't want them in this college football playoff again. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get in no matter what they do. So by going to USC, not only does he free himself from that extra hurdle that he would have to overcome, the committee themselves, in order to get back in the good graces to get in the top 4, but because of that USC brand and where they are, that the committee would love nothing more.
Oh, yeah.
For television, for advertising, for the brand to get USC back into the college football playoff.
Colin said that on his podcast from Sunday night, Monday morning. I listened to it this morning when I went to the gym because I wanted to hear what he's going to say. As I had a feeling he's an LA guy now. Yeah. And he's very connected. He said that he had conversations with a lot of them, and that was one of the big piece is that you got to make a splash. You got to do something big. And they were like, just wait. So they've been working on trying to get him for a while. The other piece behind that is he's like, TV executives were probably ecstatic, throwing papers, excited, confetti's falling from the sky. Mm-hmm. Because they have the 2nd largest market in the United States locked up with a coach that actually knows what he's doing. So don't get twisted. Lincoln Riley is going to be successful at USC.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No doubt.
He's a good coach. He's not underrated. I had an argument with somebody about him being underrated. No. He's overrated. No, he's not overrated. He's not underrated. He's a good coach. He knows how to coach. He knows how to get players there. Alex Grinch knows the Pac-12 because he coached at Washington State, and his defense was actually pretty good there compared to what they were at OU. Mm-hmm. He was still getting recruits in, but he's going to get better recruits at USC than he could at OU. Even though OU was getting good recruits, he's going to get better ones.
I mean, better recruits, a more watch. I mean, he's one of the few coaches who, when you watch an OU game and when you watch Lincoln Riley's offense operated, let's say before this season, it's fun to watch. You know, it's what you want to see in college football. So so there are so many things going for him, and that's why, like I said, I have no problem with this move. USC, LSU, wherever it would have been, I mean, some places I might have had some problems with that. He could do
USC
better.
makes the most sense. He is a Hollywood-looking guy.
It makes perfect sense.
He's vibrant. He's going to be a celebrity there, basically. It was perfect for them to make this big-name splash, and I think this is probably the time that USC is now going to make moves. So, from there,